Hello again, everybody, and welcome back to the channel. Thank you so much for joining us today. Well, today we're going to be having a quick look at the Undercover Lite 38 Special Revolver by Charter Arms. It's supposed to be one of the lighter options you can get for concealed carry, and it's not too pricey, so we're going to jump into it here in just a minute. All right, once again, welcome back. Thanks for being with us today. If this is your first time coming to the channel, or if you've watched our videos before and just haven't had the chance until now and you like our content, please consider subscribing. You can locate that subscribe button in the lower right hand corner of your computer screen there, or if you're on a mobile device, you can just scroll down below the video and hit subscribe that way. It's a simple thing that helps out a whole lot, and we really appreciate it. So, the Undercover Lite by Charter Arms. This thing's been out for a little while. I honestly completely overlooked it when it first came out, and because I try to, based on what people ask for and what I see myself, I try to get new guns, obviously reviewed as soon as I can, but there's always guns that take priority. And so I looked at this thing and I picked it up and I realized, it actually is pretty light. It was impressive. And when I say that, we always start off with a little size comparison here, which we'll do this time. I'm going to put this down and I'm going to show you something I carry a lot of as far as carry revolvers. And this is a Smith & Wesson. This is 642 airweight. This is one of my favorite carry revolvers of all time, just because it's very simple, very light, very compact, goes right in my pocket. Now, if you look at these two, the main body of the revolver, they're very, very similar in size. Obviously, they're not exactly the same, but if you cut off the grips and just look at these are very similar. The grip is where things change quite a bit. You've got this much larger grip on this gun, and we'll talk about why that's not necessarily a bad thing in a minute. But the Charter Arms, even though it's a larger gun, is actually a little lighter than my 642 by a little over a couple of ounces, which I found surprising. And, when you're considering a gun that's going to be in a holster that you're going to carry all day long, the weight and size definitely matter. The grip is, although it's larger on this, that's not really a big concern of mine, because this rubber grip is going to be what's sticking up, further out of the holster. And this generally isn't going to be that irritating. If I had like wood or metal grip, then that might be a problem. So that's your basic size overview on the Undercover Lite. Okay, we're going to jump right into the features here, but before we do, we want to take just a moment to thank our friends over at Don's Weaponry for providing us this beautiful example of the Undercover Lite 38 Special Revolver by Charter Arms. Don's Weaponry is a huge supporter of firearms safety and education, and we can't thank them enough. So, of course, we'll do a quick safety check here, let you see we have an empty cylinder here, and no problems there. So, much like the 642 Smith I used for size comparison, these are both 5-shot 38 Special revolvers. Now, there's a special place in my heart for 38 Special revolvers, just because, it's a cartridge that you can still get. It's still reasonably priced compared to a lot of cartridges. And, for me, I don't feel like I necessarily have to have as many rounds on me as some people. You need to do what you're comfortable with. If your comfort level says 10, 15 extra mags, that's what you need to do. I'm very comfortable with 5 shots of 38 Special on me, so I'm willing to do that. Now, looking at this, obviously, like many revolvers of this type, it's got a very simple sight system. You had your fixed metal sight here, which is built right into the metal of the barrel there, and then you have your notch. It's just literally cut into the top of it. It's the basic, most basic thing you can use, but you have to remember a gun like this was not designed for, nor should be used for long distances. This is definitely, for close-up encounters. This is a double action, single action. You can see here you've got your hammer, so you can pull it back to single action, or you can just use a full trigger pull for double action. The trigger's actually not bad. We're going to talk about that when we go to the range section here in a minute. But of course, you've got your cylinder release here. It's it's not bad. It does feel there's quite a bit more resistance than what I would have expected going back and forth with the cylinder. And it's almost like the pin, it's almost like there's a really heavy amount of resistance here on the pin where you push the cylinder in. Most of my little 38 revolvers don't take quite that much energy to drop it back in. So I think it's just a difference in, the weight of that pressure, that spring they've got in there. But it works fine. But that and this control both feel a little heavier than what I would get on, say, a Smith & Wesson or another revolver. But it still works fine. Like I say, you've got this large grip. Now, trying to keep the gun small, I prefer to have a smaller grip as I can, because a gun like this is something that I definitely would put in my pocket. And I do very often. It's very easy for me to carry this gun. You take a sticky holster, and this can go down in my pocket, and it is ready to draw from the pocket, very thin. It doesn't take up any more space than a wallet. Well, I kind of like that smaller grip in general just because I do that. Now, the larger grip is actually more comfortable, and when you shoot it, it's definitely a lot more comfortable. That smaller grip on the Smith is not the most comfortable experience in the world when you're shooting it. We will get into that. The trigger guard is almost the exact same size as the Smith. I mean, it's almost like a carbon copy when you look at it. And I'm sure that a lot of these guns, have borrowed ideas and specifications, but it looks almost identical until you get to the grip, But like I say, it's a revolver. There's not that many components, obviously. You're talking about a 2-inch barrel, and we'll talk about that a little bit more in the range section, where that's going to come into play. But it's a decent gun. It feels decent in the hand with the oversized grip, and the controls are fairly easy to manipulate. They're a little heavier than, say, on one of my Smith or Ruger revolvers, but they still work just fine. Okay, so let's talk about the range. Just about every time I talk about a small revolver shooting 38 special, I will mention something that they all seem to have in common, and that's going to be that, after a while, they're going to be a little bit painful to shoot because, it's not .357 Magnum. I get it. There's a lot more powerful rounds you can shoot through a handgun, but even 38 special, if you shoot a lot of rounds through a gun this size, you're really going to feel it in your hand. When I shoot my little 642 Smith, I'm generally not going to shoot an entire box of ammo when I practice because, just this 130 grain full metal jacket Federal, something like this, that's going to be pretty painful after a while. And defensive rounds are going to be even worse. Now, so you may be asking, so what about those defensive rounds? Now, if you look at the barrel, there's not a +P rating on here. Now, I checked into this, and according to Charter Arms, this firearm is able to handle +P ammo. They don't recommend it, not because the gun can't handle it, because they say obviously a 2-inch barrel versus a 4-inch barrel, you don't have enough barrel to burn all the powder, and so you get a lot of unnecessary recoil. Well, so it sounds to me like that's a choice that you can make, because I have many short barrels that just fine. Obviously, this Smith & Wesson, has a similar barrel, and it's +P rated. So I do it all the time. I carry +P ammo exclusively in my 642. So they're not recommending it just based on the amount of recoil that you're going to get, but they say it is rated for that. Of course, you can play it safe. There's tons and tons of lighter loads you can get, like this Hornady makes this Critical Defense Lite. And I've actually recommended this to people who've got, hand strength issues, things like that. This is just a 90 grain projectile. And this is a lot easier to work with. There's lots of options like that are pretty good. But the gun actually is a pretty good shooting gun. Now, anything like this with a tiny barrel, obviously we're talking about close-up shooting. This is not for long-distance shooting at all. The double-action trigger on it it feels, it's not bad. It reminds me a little bit of, I know I've got a couple of Smiths that seem to load up a lot here at the very end before they break, and that's what this feels like. My Rugers are kind of, they feel like that they're more even all the way across, like the entire trigger pull is kind of even, and so when it breaks, it's not like the amount of force is increasing toward the back. This feels more like a Smith to me. In single action, just a little bit of pressure. It's a nice clean break. It's a really good, I actually enjoy the single action trigger on this quite a bit. So it's not bad to shoot, and this oversized rubber grip actually takes a lot of the energy that you'd think would be going to your hand. So it's a little bit easier to shoot this than my 642 just because of the grip, but after a while you'd still feel it too. So it's a good shooting handgun for the, for the purpose it's intended within the range it's supposed to operate. It does a good job. So what's it like to carry the Undercover Lite 38 Special? Well, to me this is simple because this is a pocket gun. It's got a little bit bigger grip, but this will still fit in my pocket easy. I'm usually wearing either slacks or I'm wearing cargo shorts. I'm wearing something where my front pockets are plenty big. And like I said, this is not a huge firearm. It's got a little bit bigger grip, like we talked about, than the Smith, but it will still very easily go into something like a sticky, and you can just put it right there facing upright in your pocket, and it'll stay there. You can draw from your pocket, and you can even return it to your pocket the same way if you have to. So to me, and I've talked about these holsters before, and I know a lot of people, they absolutely want something with retention. Like I say, Sticky doesn't pay me to talk about their holsters. I just like them. I've got a ton of them. I use them for lots of things, but I only use them for guns that are small enough and light enough that I would either pocket the gun or, maybe use a small part of the waistband, up front or on the side. Something like that where I know it's going to be a secure location for the gun. The heavier the gun, the worse of an idea that something like this becomes. But for something like this, it's just really fantastic. So how's it like to carry it? It's simple. It's light as a feather. You can have this in your pocket and you won't think about it any more than, if you had your wallet. This is 12 ounces is what they advertise on this. The Smith is, I think, a little over 14.2 or something like that. And I carry this routinely, and it's always extremely comfortable. So I was very surprised, pleasantly, how light this firearm is and how easy it is to carry either in the pocket or right in front of my waistband. So it's a good experience. Highly recommend it if you want something light for carry. Overall impressions of the Undercover Lite 38 Special by Charter Arms. It does a lot of the same things that some more expensive lightweight revolvers do, in the way of keeping the weight down and being functional and having a good trigger. It does have the larger grip. From a comfort standpoint, that's a big plus when you're shooting it. It does make it a little bit bulkier to conceal, but I didn't find it uncomfortable to conceal. As a matter of fact, if you were carrying inside the waistband with some kind of a retention holster, you're just looking at a little bit of extra grip, maybe rubbing against the body, unless you have a full, cover like it's a horsehide or leather, if you have something that comes up, even foam, in your holster that protects the body. Either way, there are no hard edges is what I'm getting at, so the larger grip is perfectly comfortable to carry. It's a good shooting gun. It has a trigger, very similar to me than a lot of my Smiths. And in single action, it's a joy to shoot. Most of these in double action are going to be a little squirrely, obviously, but it's a 2-inch barrel 38 Special, so go figure. Once again, it's not recommended for plus P, but they say it will handle plus P, so you don't have to do anything different if you're already running that type of ammo in your pistol. They've got different varieties of these. They start at a little over $400. And, as far as, revolvers go, that's not bad. It's not the cheapest thing on the market, but it's certainly not in the, marquee price category for like your Smiths and your Rugers. So it's a good value. It's got some good features, and it seems to be a good shooting gun. So if you're trying to keep the money down and you want something that's comfortable to shoot in 38, there's no reason not to have a look at this. It seems to be a pretty good offering from Charter Arms. All right, that's going to do it for today. We thank you so much for being with us as always. We'll be back with another video very soon. Until that time, everybody, please stay safe and have a great day. Thank you.